the voice of Jesus calling. My answer is, I will go. I see the need of people crying. My answer is, I will go. I go to share the message of love. I go to share the blessed hope. But if I get discouraged, I call to Jesus' help. Because I have decided I will go.
Magandang gabi po sa ating lahat. Happy Midweek. Kumusta po kayo? Mabuti naman. At bago po tayo mag-uumpisa, tayo po muna ay manalangin. Salamat po Ama sa gabing ito na kami ay inyong mulit pinagtagpo dito sa bahay sambahanan. Naway, tulungan niyo po kami na sa gabing ito ay kami ay makapagpuri sa inyong pangalan. At aming itinadalangin po ang aming mga kapatiran na naway nasa mabuti silang kalagayan. Samahan niyo po kami Ama sa pag-aawitan ngayong gabi. Ito po ang aming dalangin at hiling sa pangalan po ni Jesus. Amen. Sa una pong awitin natin ay awitin po natin ang I Will Sing of Jesus' Love, hymn 85. I will sing of Jesus' love, sing of Him who first loved me, for He lives bright worlds above and died on Calvary. I will sing of Jesus' love in this verse. My heart shall give His died, that I might live. I will sing His love to me. Oh, the depths of love divine, earth or heaven, God never know how the saints as dark as mine can be made as white as snow. I will sing of Jesus' love in this praise. My heart shall give He has died, that I might live. I will sing His love to me. Nothing good for Him I've done. How could He such love bestow, Lord, I owe. Of Jesus' love in this praise, my heart shall give He has died, that I might live. I will sing His love to me. Jesus saves, 2-5. 25. We have heard a joyful sound. Jesus saves, Jesus saves. Spread the gladness all around. Jesus saves, Jesus saves. With the news to every land. Climb the steeps and cross the ways. Lord, what is our Lord's command? Jesus saves, Jesus saves. Wafts it on the rolling tide. Jesus saves, Jesus saves. Tell to sinners far and wide. Jesus saves, Jesus saves. Sing ye islands of the sea. Echo back ye ocean keeps. Here shall keep her jubilee. Jesus saves, Jesus saves. Sing above the battle's strife. Jesus saves, Jesus saves. By his death and endless life. Jesus saves, Jesus saves. Sing it softly through the globe when the heart for mercy craves. Sing it joy, you more than time. Jesus saves, Jesus saves. Give the words and mighty voice. Jesus saves, Jesus saves. Let the nations now rejoice. Jesus saves, Jesus saves. Shout salvation full and free. Highest hills and deepest deeps. These are songs of victory. Jesus saves, Jesus saves. For our opening song, shall we sing What a Friend We Have in Jesus? 323, 323. Shall we all stand? What a friend we have in Jesus, all our sins and griefs to bear.
So di pa ako manalangin, mayroon pong nabuklasan natin sa Bible, mga awit 86:11. Ituro mo ang aking mga inyong daan, O Panginoon. Lalakad ako sa iyong katotohanan. Ilakip mo ang aking puso sa pagkatakot sa inyong pangalan. Tayo po'y manikluhod. Dakila pagpala namin Diyos, sa gabi po ito, Ama, kami pinuli ng pagkasalamat. Sa kalahating isang linggo, na inyo po kami binigyan ng kalakasan, binigyan niyo kami ng pagkataon na kami po'y makinig sa inyo pong banang salita. Ama, ang inyo pong pinadala na ministro, na inyo pong bigyan ng katalinuhan, na ang lahat niyang mabanggit, amin pong mapakinggan, na ito po'y masunod namin sa bawat isa sa amin. Ama, ilapit namin ang aming pong mga kapatid na takbay sa daanan, inyo po silang ingatan, inyo po silang bigyan ng lakas na sila po makarating sa inyo pong sama. Sa oras po ito, patawarin kami sa inyong pagkukulang ng sala. Ito po aming hinihiling, alang-alang po sa pangalan ni Jesus.
Magandang gabi po. Happy Midweek. Bagaman kakaunti tayo, pero marami tayong kasama ngayon. Ang kasama natin ay ang mga anghel. Amen? Sa gabing ito, ang prayer meeting po natin ay may mga taong nakalista dito para sa ating program. At binabati ko rin po ang nasa Facebook Live at sa YouTube. Kasama po natin sila sa prayer meeting ngayong gabi. Ngayon po, salamat po kay Sister Ann Diaman sa pangunguna sa ating inspiration at kay Alea Fabon sa pagpiano. Gayun din po sa opening prayer na ibinahagi po sa atin ni kapatid na Ali Laranjo. At ang special song po ay ang mga taga ABS missionaries. At bago po magsalita ang ating speaker sa katauhan ni Mr. Dennis Arquiliano na isa sa ating workers sa ating division na nasa IT department po. At magkakaroon po tayo ng prayer session at sa kalagitnaan po ng ating program. Pero bago po magsalita ang ating speaker, makakarinig po tayo ng special song sa ABS Missionaries. And magkakaroon po ng closing song and closing prayer ng speaker po natin. Thank you.
set my course on the narrow way, on the narrow way. For I know the time is close at hand, for which I watch and pray. And that is today, 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 until He comes. I have set my course on a narrow way, on the narrow way. Even so, Lord, come quickly. This is my fervent prayer. For I caught a glimpse, longing to be there. What a glimpse of glory, and I'm longing to be there. Okay na naman. Okay. Wait, meron pa. Hindi mo natin na. Okay.
Once again, happy midweek sa ating lahat. And salamat sa napakagandang awit. Ang topic natin ngayong gabi is about health. And galing po ito sa libro ni Ellen G. White na Councils of Diet and Foods. Sinong may ganitong libro sa ating bahay? Si pastor. Yung mga pastor lang natin, meron? So tayo, wala. So, ngayong gabi, sabay-sabay nating mapakinggan kung ano ang message ni Ellen G. White in terms of diet and sa pagkain natin. Kasi wala din akong ganong libro eh. So, specific ito sa tea and coffee. So, part 2 ito sa beverages na title. So, una dito is the stimulating effect of tea and coffee. The stimulating diet and drink of this day are not conducive to the best state of health. Tea and coffee and tobacco are still stimulating and contains poison. Poison pala yung kape. Hindi lang pala yung tobacco. They are not only unnecessary but harmful and should be discarded if we would add knowledge temperance. Tea is poisonous to the system. Christians should let it alone. The influence of coffee is a degree the same as tea, but the effect upon the system is still worse. It influences the exciting and just in the degree that it elevates above par. It will exhaust and bring prostration below par. Tea and coffee drinkers carry the marks upon their faces. The skin becomes sallow and assume the lifeless appearance. The glow of health is not seen upon the countenance. Testimonies of the Church, page 264. This is every stripe and type have been brought upon human beings by the use of tea and coffee, and narcotics, opium and tobacco. This hurtful indulgence must be given up, not only one but all, for all are hurtful and ruinous to the physical, mental, and moral powers, and should be discontinued from a health standpoint. Never take tea, coffee, beer, wine, or any spirituous liquors. Water is the best liquid possible to cleanse the tissue. So, yung Mrs. ni Ellen White, ano talaga, parang strong talaga. So, sabi to, never take. To, hindi talaga natin pwedeng inumin yun. Tea, coffee, and tobacco, as well as alcoholic drinks, are different degrees in the scale of artificial stimulants. The effect of tea and coffee, as hereof shown, tends in the same direction as of wine and cider, liquor, and tobacco. So, hindi tayo umiinom ng wine, hindi tayo umiinom ng liquor, pero same lang din yung effect sa tea and coffee. Coffee is hurtful indulgence. It temporarily excites the mind to unwanted actions. But the after effect is exhaustion, frustration, paralysis of mental, moral, and physical powers. The mind becomes enervated, and unless through determined effort the habit is overcome, the activity of the brain is permanently lessened. All these nerve irritants are wearing away the life forces and restlessness caused by shattered nerves. Impatience, the mental feebleness become a wearing element, antagonizing to spiritual progress. Then, should not those who advocate temperance and reform be awake to counterattack the evil of these injurious drinks? In some cases, it is difficult to break up the tea and coffee habit, as it is for the inebriate to discontinue the use of liquor. The money expended for tea and coffee is worse than wasted. They do the user only harm, and that continually those who use tea, coffee, opium, and alcohol may sometimes live to an old age, but this fact is no argument in favor of the use of these stimulants. What this person might have accomplished but failed to do because of their intemperate habits, the great day of God alone will reveal. Those who resort to tea and coffee or stimulant to labor will feel the evil effect of this course in trembling nerves and lack of self-control. Tired nerves need rest and quiet. Nature needs time to recuperate her exhausted energies. But if her force are galled on by use of stimulant, there is, whenever this process is repeated, a lessening of real force. For a time more may be accomplished under the natural stimulus, but gradually it becomes more difficult to rouse the energies to this desired point, and at last, exhausted nature can no longer respond. So, yung effect pala ng coffee, especially, is parang from a short period of time lang na nakaka-feel ka ng strength or something na energy. Pero pag nawala na yung effect niya, babalik ka rin sa exhausted na body. The habit of drinking tea and coffee is a greater evil than is often suspected. Many who have accustomed themselves to use of stimulating drinks suffer from headaches and nervous frustration and lose much time on account of sickness. They imagine they cannot live without these stimulants. So dito na yung nangyayari na dependent na yung body mo sa stimulants. And are ignorant for its effect upon health. What makes it more dangerous is that its evil effects are so often attributed to other causes. Through the use of stimulants, the whole system suffers. The nerves are unbalanced, the liver is morbid in its action, the quality of circulation of the blood are affected, and the skin becomes inactive and sallow. The mind, too, is injured. The immediate influence of these stimulants is to excite the brain, to undo activity, only to leave it weaker and less capable of exertion. The after effect is frustration, not only mental and physical, but moral. As a result, we see a nervous man and woman of unsound judgment and unbalanced mind. They often manifest a hasty, impatient, accusing spirit, viewing a fault of others as through magnifying glass and utterly unable to discern their own defects. So, hindi lang pala sa body yung epekto ng coffee and tea, pati na rin sa behavior natin. When these tea and coffee users meet together for social entertainment, the effect of their pernicious habit are manifest. All partake freely of the favorite beverage, and as stimulating influence is felt. Their tongues are loosened, and they begin the wicked work of talking against others. So, yun pala yung effect ng kape. Their words are not few or well chosen. The tidbits of gossip are passed around, so often, and poison of scandal as well. These thoughtless gossipers forget that they have a witness. An unseen watcher is writing their words in the book of heaven. All this unkind criticism, these exaggerated reports, these envious feelings expressed under the excitement of a cup of tea, Jesus registers us against himself, inasmuch as ye have done unto one of the least of these, my brethren, ye have done unto me. We are already suffering because of the wrong habits of our fathers, and yet how many take a course in every way worse than theirs? Opium, tea, coffee, tobacco, and liquor are rapidly extinguishing the spark of vitality still left in the race. Every year, millions of gallons of intoxicating liquors are drunk, and millions of dollars are spent for tobacco. And the slave of appetite, while constantly spending the earnings in a sensual indulgence, rob their children of food and clothing and advantages of education. There can never be a right state of society while this evil exists. You are highly nervous and excitable. Tea has an influence to excite the nerve, and coffee benumbs the brain. Both are highly injurious. You should be careful of your diet. Eat the most wholesome and nourishing food, and keep yourself in a calm state of mind where you will not become so excited and fly into the passion. Tea acts as a stimulant, and to a certain extent produce intoxication. The action of coffee and many other popular drinks is similar. The first effect is accelerating. The nerves of the stomach are excited. This conveys irritation to the brain, and this in turn is aroused to impart and short-lived energy to the entire system. Fatigue is forgotten, and strength seems to be increased. The intellect is aroused, the imagination becomes more vivid. Because of this result, many suppose that their tea or coffee is doing them great good. So, feeling mo lang yan na parang energetic ka once nakainom ng coffee. Pero for a short period of time, babalik ka din. But this is a mistake. Tea and coffee do not nourish the system. So wala palang nakukuha tayong nourishment from coffee. Their effects is produced before there has been time for digestion and assimilation. And what seems to be the strength is only nervous excitement. When the influence of stimulant is gone, the unnatural force abates, and the result is a corresponding degree of liquor and debility. The continued use of these nerve irritants is followed by headache, wakefulness, palpitation of the heart, indigestion, trembling, and many other evils, for they wear away the life forces. Tired nerves rest and quiet instead of stimulation and overwork. Nature needs time to recuperate her exhausted energies. When her forces are goaded on by the use of stimulants, more will be accomplished for a time. But as the system becomes debilitated by their constant use, it gradually becomes more difficult to rouse the engines to the desired point. The demand for stimulants becomes more difficult to control until the will is overborne and there seems to be no more power to deny the unnatural craving. Stronger and still stronger stimulants are called for until exhausted nature can no longer respond. The health is in no way improved by the use of those things, which stimulate for a time, but afterward causes a reaction which leaves the system slower than before. Tea and coffee whip up the flagging energies for the time being. But when the immediate influence has gone, a feeling of depression is the result. These beverages have no nourishment whatever in themselves. The milk and sugar it contains constitute all nourishment afforded by a cup of tea or a coffee. Tea and coffee are stimulating. Their effects are similar to those of tobacco. So, same lang pala. Hindi tayo gumagamit ng tobacco, pero kakape or tea tayo, parang nagtatabako na rin tayo. But they affect in a lesser degree. Those who use these slow poisons like tobacco users think they cannot live without them because they feel so very bad when they do not have these idols. Those who indulge perverted appetite do it to the injury of health and intellect. They cannot appreciate the value of spiritual things. Their sensibilities are blunted, and sin does not appear very sinful, and truth is not regarded of greater value than earthly treasure. Tea and coffee drinking is a sin, an injurious indulgence, which, like other evils, injures the soul. These darling idols create an excitement and morbid action to the nervous system. And after the immediate influence of the stimulant is gone, it lets down below par just the degree that the stimulating properties elevated above par. Those who use tobacco, tea, and coffee should lay aside those idols and put their cost in the treasury of the Lord. Some have never made a sacrifice for the cause of God and are asleep as to what God requires of them. Some of the very poorest will have a greater struggles to deny themselves of these stimulants. These individual sacrifices is not required because the cause of God is suffering for means, but every heart will be tested, every character developed. It is principle that God's people must act upon. The living principle must be carried out in the life. Tea and coffee as well as tobacco have an injurious effect upon the system. Tea is intoxicating. Though less in degree, its effect is the same in character as the spirituous liquor. Coffee has a greater tendency to becloud the intellect and benumb the energies. It is not so powerful as tobacco, but it is similar in its effect. The argument brought against tobacco may also be urged against the use of tea and coffee. Those who are in the habit of using tea, coffee, tobacco, opium, or spirituous liquor cannot worship God when they are deprived of the accustomed indulgence. Let them, while deprived of these stimulants, engage in worship of God, and divine grace would be powerless to animate, enliven, or spiritualize their prayers of their testimonies. These professed Christians should not consider the means of their enjoyment. Is it from above or from beneath? Satan sees that he cannot have so great power over mind when the appetite is kept under control, as when it is indulged, and he is constantly working to lead men to indulge under the influence of an healthful food. The conscience becomes stupefied, the mind is darkened, and its susceptibility to impression is impaired. But the guilt of transgressor is not lessened because the conscience has been violated till it has become insensible. Since a health state of mind depends upon the normal condition of the vital forces, what should be exercised that neither stimulants nor narcotics be used. Yet, we see that a large number of these who profess to be Christian are using tobacco. They deplore the evil of intemperance. Yet, while speaking against the use of liquor, these very men will eject a juice of tobacco. There must be change of sentiment with reference to tobacco using before the root of the evil will be reached. We press the subject still closer. Tea and coffee are fostering an appetite for stronger stimulants. And then we come still closer home to the preparation of food, and ask, is temperance practiced in all things? Are the reforms which are essential to health and happiness carried out here? Every true Christian will have control of his appetite and passion. Unless he is free from the bondage of appetite, he cannot be a true obedient servant of Christ. The indulgence of appetite and passion blunt the effect of truth upon the health. Intemperance commends to our tables in the use of unhealthful food. After a time, through continued indulgence, the digestive organ becomes weakened, and the food taken does not satisfy the appetite. Unhealthy conditions are established, and there is a craving for more stimulating food. Tea, coffee, and the flesh meats produce an immediate effect under the influence of these poisons. The nervous system is excited, and in some cases, for the time being, the intellect seems to be invigorated and the imaginations to be more vivid. Because these stimulants produce for the time being such agreeable result, many conclude that they really need them and continue their use. But there always a reaction. The nervous system, having been duly excited, borrowed power for the present use from its future resources of strength. All this temporary invigoration of the system is followed by depression. In proportion as these stimulants temporarily invigorate the system, will be letting down the power of excited organs after stimulus has lost its forces. The appetite is educated to crave something stronger, which will have a tendency to keep up and increase the agreeable excitement. until indulge become habit and there is a continual craving for stronger stimulus as tobacco, wines, and liquor. The more the appetite is indulged, the more frequent will be its demand and the more difficult of control. The more debilitated the system becomes and the less able to do without a natural stimulus, the more the passion of these things increase until the will is overborne and there seems to be no power to deny the natural craving for these indulgences. The only safe course is to touch not, taste not, handle not tea, coffee, wines, tobacco, opium, and alcoholic drinks. This necessity for the men of this generation to call to their aid the power of the will, strengthened by the grace of God in order to withstand the temptation of Satan and resist the least indulgence of perverted appetite, is twice as great as it was several generations ago. The fact relative to Korah and his company who rebelled against Moses and Aaron and against Jehovah are recorded for a warning to God's people, especially those who live upon the earth near the close of time. Satan has led persons to imitate the example of Korah, Dathan, and Abiram in raising insurrection among the people of God. Those who permit themselves to rise in opposition to the plain testimony become self-deceived and have really thought that those upon whom God laid the burden of his work were exalted above the people of God, and that their counsels and reproofs were uncalled for. They have risen in opposition to the plain testimony which God would have them bear and rebuking the wrong among God's people. The testimonies born against hurtful indulgence as tea, coffee, snuff, and tobacco have irritated certain class because it would destroy their idols. Many for a while were undecided whether to make an entire sacrifice of all these hurtful things, or reject the plain testimonies born and yield to the clamors of appetite. They occupied an unsettled poison. There was a conflict between their convictions of truth, their self-indulgence. Their state of indecision made them weak, and with many appetite prevailed. Their sense of sacred things was perverted by the use of these slow poisons. And they at length fully decided, let the consequence be what it might, they would not deny self. This fearful decision at once raised a wall of separation between them and those who were cleansing themselves, as God has commanded, from all this filthiness of the flesh and of the spirit, and were perfecting holiness in the fear of the Lord. The straight testimonies born were in their way and caused them great uneasiness, and they found relief in warring against them and striving to make themselves and others believe that they were untrue. They said the people were all right, but it was reproving testimonies which made the trouble. And when the rebellious unfurled their banner, all the disaffected rally around the standard, and all the spiritual defective, the lame, the halt, and the blind unite their influence to scatter and sow discord. Real efforts are made to put down intemperance, but there is much effort that is not directed to the right point. The advocates of temperance reform should be awake to the evil resulting from the use of unwholesome food. Condiments, tea, and coffee, we bid all temperance workers Godspeed, but we invite them to look more deeply into the cause of the evil they war against, and to be sure that they are consistent in reform. It must be kept before the people that the right balance of mental and moral powers depends in the great degree in the right condition of the physical system. All narcotics and unnatural stimulants that enfeeble and degrade the physical nature tends to lower the tone of the intellect and morals. Intemperance lies at the foundation of the moral depravity of the world. But indulgence of this perverted appetite, man loses his power to resist temptation. Temperance reformers have a work to do in educating the people in these lines. Teach them that health, character, and even life are endangered by the use of stimulants which excite and exhaust energies to a natural spasmodic action. In relation to tea, coffee, and tobacco, and alcoholic drinks, the only safe course is to touch not, taste not, handle not. The tendency of tea, coffee, and similar drink is in the same direction as of that alcoholic liquor and tobacco, and in some cases, habit is as difficult to break as it is for the drunkard to give up intoxicants. Those who attempt to live off these stimulants will for a time feel a loss and will suffer without them. But the persistent they will overcome and craving and cease to feel the lack. Nature may require a little time to recover from the abuse she has suffered, but give her a chance and she will gain, rally, and perform her work nobly as well. Satan is corrupting minds and destroying souls through his subtle temptation. Will our people see and feel the sin of indulging perverted appetite? Will they discard tea, coffee, flesh meats, and stimulating food, and devote the means expended for those hurtful indulgences spreading the truth? What power can the tobacco devotee have to stay in progress of the temperance? There must be a revolution in our world upon the subject of tobacco before an axe is laid at the root of the tree. We press the subject still closer. Tea and coffee are fostering the appetite which is developing for stronger stimulants as tobacco and liquor. Concerning the flesh meat, we can say, let it alone, and all should bear a clear testimony against tea and coffee. Whenever using them, they are narcotics, injurious alike to the brain and to the other organs of the body. Let the member of our churches deny every selfish appetite. Every penny expended for tea, coffee, and flesh meat is worse than wasted. For these things hinder the best development of the physical, mental, and spiritual powers. Some think that they cannot reform, that the health would be sacrificed should they attempt to leave the use of tea, tobacco, and flesh meat. This is the suggestion of Satan. It is these hurtful stimulants that are surely undermining the constitution and preparing the system for acute diseases by impairing nature's fine machinery and battering down her fortification erected against disease and premature decay. The use of unnatural stimulants is destructive to health and has a benumbing influence upon the brain, making it impossible to appreciate eternal things. Those who cherish these idols cannot rightly value the salvation which Christ has wrought out for them by a life of self-denial, continual suffering and reproach, and by finally yielding his own sinless life to save perishing man from death. So, dito po na tapos ang ating pagbabasa ngayong gabi. So dito makikita natin na kahit hindi tayo umiinom ng liquor, hindi tayo gumagamit ng tabako tulad ng nakikita natin mostly. Pero, well, nakikita natin na si Ellen White nagsasabi na same din ang effect nun kung umiinom pa rin tayo ng tea and coffee. So, this evening, I hope na na-bless tayo sa message ni Ellen G. White. And once again, happy midweek to all of us.
Maraming salamat, kapatid na Dennis. Ngayon po, dadako po tayo sa ating prayer session. Pero bago po yan, nais ko pong i-announce na magkakaroon po tayo ng this coming Friday, Vesper, ng reunion concert po ng Family Vocal Ensemble and AUP COE Choral. Kaya inaanyayahan po namin kayo na pumunta ngayong Friday, Vesper, para makapakinig po tayo ng magandang awitin na ihandog ng mga Family Vocal Ensemble and AUP COE Choral. Ngayon po, magkakaroon po tayo ng prayer session. Naway maggrupo po tayo dito sa grupo ni Mother Nori at sa likod, dito sa harap, hatiin po natin. Then yung mga prayer request nyo po ay ibahagi na lang po natin sa ating kanya-kanyang grupo. Maraming salamat po.
the blood. 173. Shall we all stand? Would you be free from the burden of sin? There's power in the blood, power in the blood. Would you worry, will a victory win? There's wonderful power in the blood. There is power, power, wonder working in the blood of the Lamb. There is power, power, wonder working power in the precious blood of the Lamb. Would you be free from your passion and pride? There's power in the blood, power in the blood. Come for a to God while we stand. There's wonderful power in the blood. There is power, power, wonder working power in the blood of the Lamb. There is power, power, wonder working power in the precious blood of the Lamb. Would you the service for Jesus your King? There's power in the blood, power in the blood. Would you live daily His praises to sing? There's wonderful power in the blood. There is power, power, wonder working power in the blood of the Lamb. There is power, power, wonder working power in the precious blood of the Lamb.
Let us pray. Our most gracious and kind Heavenly Father, thank you, Lord, for the success of our evening worship this evening, and thank you for the words that we heard from the book of Ellen G. White. And Lord, as we depart from this place, may you ask your angels to be upon us and to watch us. And thank you for the new blessings that you have given to us. Thank you for hearing us your prayers. That you're going to forgive us of all the sins. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.